Why does the world feel like it's drifting toward war right now? Let's start with the obvious. Ukraine. It's the first full-scale war in Europe since the 1990s, when Yugoslavia fell apart, and Sarajevo became a synonym for European paralysis. But this is different. It's not a regional civil war. It's a major invasion. Tanks rolling across borders, cities bombed, battle lines stretching thousands of kilometers. Ukraine isn't in the EU. It's not in NATO. But it's close enough, geographically, culturally, and politically, to send a shiver down the spines of European leaders. And it exposed something Europe didn't want to admit, that decades of talking softly and outsourcing defense to the US had left them naked. They were caught off guard, caught with their pants down, and the illusion that Russia could be managed through diplomacy and pipelines died in the first weeks of 2022. But what's made the situation worse, more volatile, more uncertain, is that America is no longer acting like the world's anchor. For most of the post-Cold War period, the US played global referee. It didn't always get things right, far from it. But there was a predictable rhythm to American power, a sense that if things got too bad somewhere, the US would step in. Now, not so much. Washington is divided, distracted, and increasingly reluctant to carry the burdens of empire. Ukraine has become a political football, with aid packages stalled, alliances questioned, and trust fraying. The US isn't gone, but it's more like a part-time superpower, watching, hovering, but not necessarily showing up when it counts. And that's when the rest of the world started moving. We're entering a new phase, a multipolar moment, where countries that once sat quietly in the shadow of superpowers are now stepping forward. Some are doing it cautiously, testing the waters. Others are charging in, reshaping their regions with hard power or economic leverage. It's not always coordinated, it's not always coherent, but it's happening. Everywhere. In Southeast Asia, countries like Vietnam and the Philippines are pushing back against Chinese maritime aggression with a new assertiveness. In Africa, regional powers like Ethiopia and Nigeria are refusing to be dictated to by the West or the East, while military juntas from Mali to Niger are tossing out old alliances and flirting with Russian mercenaries. In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia is no longer playing by America's rules. It's cutting deals with China, mending ties with Iran, and trying to carve out a role as a sovereign geopolitical broker, not just a petrodollar client. Turkey too is flexing its autonomy, balancing between NATO and Russia, arming Ukraine while buying missiles from Moscow. These countries aren't global giants, but they've learned something important. In a fractured world, middling power can go a long way, especially when no one's in charge, especially when the old rules are breaking down. The post-Cold War script, where the US made the rules, Europe signed the treaties and everyone else picked sides, doesn't apply anymore. What replaces it? Something looser, more opportunistic, a world where states make short-term bets, switch allegiances, hedge their interests, and see how far they can go before someone pushes back. It's messy, it's unstable, and it's very 21st century. At the center of this shift is China. Its economic rise is no longer news. What's new is the confidence and aggression with which it's projecting power. After smothering democracy in Hong Kong, Beijing has turned outward. Its tone on Taiwan has gone from stern to openly threatening. Its military drills have turned into dry runs for blockade and invasion. And the message is clear. The era of hiding your strength and biding your time is over. But China isn't doing this alone. It's increasingly tied to Russia in what analysts are calling the Dragon Bear Alliance. A strategic partnership that's more than just anti-West rhetoric. It's trade, it's energy, it's military coordination, it's diplomatic cover. And it's changing the balance of power across multiple continents. In many ways, what we're seeing is the death of the unipolar moment, the period from 1991 to maybe 2015 when America stood unchallenged. That world is gone. And what's replacing it isn't a stable multipolar system, it's a chaotic scramble, with rising powers, bitter old rivals, and new alliances testing each other's red lines. And Europe? Europe is not ready. On paper it should be. It's still one of the wealthiest regions on Earth, but it lacks unity, willpower, and, most importantly, hard power. European militaries are underfunded, their supply chains are broken, their populations are politically divided, and more they're governed by nationalist leaders who resent the EU, distrust each other, and prefer posturing to coordination. So as the world becomes more dangerous, Europe is becoming more fragile. The US sees this, and it's adjusting. Rather than wait for Brussels to get its act together, Washington is starting to rebuild its alliances elsewhere. It's cozying up to mid-tier powers: Saudi Arabia, Egypt, India, even Vietnam. Powers that aren't democratic beacons, but are strategically useful. It's a game of blocks. And the old liberal alliance is being replaced by something messier, more transactional. At the same time, Washington is starting to punish those siding with the dragon bear, sanctioning trade, excluding companies, blocking deals. The world is splitting, slowly but unmistakably, into a new kind of Cold War logic. Not ideology versus ideology, but bloc versus bloc, sphere versus sphere, a contest for control, for chips, for straits for influence. And what does that mean for the average person watching the news and wondering why everything feels tense? It means that the peace we took for granted, the global order built after World War II and turbocharged after the Cold War, is unravelling. Not in one big bang, but in a series of shocks. Ukraine, Gaza, the Red Sea, Taiwan, the Sahel, the Arctic, the Balkans. Trouble spots everywhere, each one a spark. It feels like we're heading toward more war because, in a way, we are. The world isn't slipping into one great war, but into many small ones, each with its own logic, its own actors, its own dangers. And for the first time in decades, there's no referee, no one to call time out. Just shifting powers, open bets, and a lot of weapons. In a world without certainty, power matters more than process, and trust matters less than leverage. Welcome to the 2020s.